Hey everyone, welcome to r/Tales from Tech Support, where we get to have a little chuckle at the technically disadvantaged. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got some stories for you. Don't use CTRL F, use CTRL H. So a few years back, one of my publishers called me in to help with an emergency project. Basically, me translating and editing a huge body of boring ass text. And it had to be done in the office because it was key national project. In the office, there was a girl about my age who was relatively new. She just sat there all week working intensely but slowly, mumbling and looking stressed. On the second to last day of my project, we're alone in the office. I make some comment about, ugh, this is so incredibly tedious, and she says something to the effect of, you're telling me. We talk for a bit, I explain what I'm doing. Wait, what are you doing? Apparently, for an equally huge book, someone really high up in government decided he didn't like a bunch of the specific terms they made up for the project. So at last minute, hands over a list of 40 or so. They all need to be swapped out. She's been at it for like 8 days. I'm thinking, okay, that's like an hour of work at most if it's all in one big file. Wait a minute. Oh no. Can you show me how you're doing this? She finds a word, pastes over it manually, next, find, paste, next. Don't use Ctrl F, use Ctrl H. What's that? Ctrl F is find, Ctrl H is find and replace. But that's what I'm already doing. Look, just try. Just do it and you'll see. Pops it up, kind of speaking to herself. What's this? Find and source text, target text, replace all? She starts mumbling to herself, oh my god, oh no, oh my god, why, oh my god, oh no, and crying softly. Poor girl. Yep, sometimes we make things way too complicated on ourselves. I'm kind of going through that with this channel. You know, there's easier ways to do things that I'm doing, and sometimes it's trial by fire and you just learn as you go. Stumble through it until you figure it out. Or somebody tells me how to do it. You mean those databases are supposed to stay running all night? Many years ago, we developed the workforce management system for the utility industry. Drivers had laptops in their trucks that ran our software, through which they could manage the work they were assigned to do. This was long before widespread wireless. Some drivers had cell phone modems and some had SMR radio, through which we could sneak low bandwidth, high priority data. But the bulk of the data that moved back and forth did so over ordinary modems. The drivers would bring the laptop into their house, connect the phone line, and kick off a transfer. The utility had a bank of modems, each connected to a serial port being managed by one of our programs that would pull data offline, queue it up for less time-sensitive applications, and process it to update the database. Back then, serial ports had limited buffers, and if you didn't get back to read them fast enough, you'd lose data. The whole system had worked fine in test, and everything seemed to work fine in production, except that the data wasn't being updated when it should have. Drivers were insisting that they were uploading their data every night, but it wasn't being inserted into the database until the next morning. I'd been trying to figure out what might be going on for most of a week, bothering their IT staff with requests for log files, configuration settings, results of database queries, etc. The machines in question were thousands of miles away and we had no remote access. Then someone at the utility decided to escalate the issue. A massive conference call was scheduled with the chief executive this and chief executive that, and all the relevant department heads and the this staff and that staff, and me. I was explaining that everything seemed to be working fine except that the data processing application was losing its database connection, and I hadn't been able to figure out why. Eventually the connection would be restored, the data pulled from the queue and then processed correctly, but this was hours after it should have been. And the connection always seemed to go down after hours when there was no one in the DB department around who could check on why the connection has dropped. Then came a voice from the back of one of the myriad conference rooms. You mean those databases are supposed to stay running all night? Have you ever run into somebody like that? Somebody after hours staff that's being helpful and trying to shut things down, not knowing that they shouldn't touch anything? Let me know in the comments down below. A little knowledge is dangerous. Many decades ago, when the best desktop was the 8086, everyone used the Office mainframe using a dumb terminal. The owner bought the department secretary the 8086 to let her send out product information to homeowners, etc., rather than using an electric typewriter. He helped her set up letter templates. Rather than creating a list of who the letters went to, she file saved every letter, burned through the limited data storage quickly. Owner then decided to send her to a computer use class. Being one of the tech-savvy employees, she rings my extension one day and asked, "If I type erase asterisk dot asterisk, will it erase everything?" "Yes, it will," I responded. A few minutes later, she's at my desk and livid. "I can't find any of my files." I asked her what she did, knowing the answer already. "I typed erase asterisk dot asterisk." "What did I tell you would happen if you did that?" Her mouth dropped open and she walked away. Owner came up and asked what happened to her computer. I told him what she asked and then did. Then told him we could reinstall the operating software and pull the templates from an old floppy backup. Told him the good news was, she would now be able to start fresh with all memory available, and create a list rather than save everything she sent. Yeah, it doesn't sound like that computer class did a lot of good. I'm not even sure why she would be taught that. I wouldn't want Alexa to be sad. My 82-year-old grandma, God bless her, is the generation of people that will call frantically and tell you, "I deleted the internet." Not that she has a PC or some sort of technical device besides a radio that is older than me and some old CRT that makes sounds when you turn it on. To give an example of just how tech illiterate she is, she doesn't know how to turn off her radio, just pulls the plug. So for some reason that by now we all have forgotten about, my family decided to get her an Alexa. It took me and my mom the better half of a day to teach her how to ask Alexa to play her favorite songs, ask for the time, and set an appointment. I have now been on constant "please help me, I broke Alexa" duty, and have been called in several of my lectures because she doesn't know what she did and why this lovely piece of tech doesn't do what she wants. We had issues ranging from she just slapped it and muted the mic to it blew her ears out by going 100% on volume and other small shenanigans. But most of the time, it works decently enough that we don't have to worry about her or the ears of her neighbors. Now, a few days ago, we talked through the phone, caused Corona, and she told me she was really tired. Which may seem normal to you and me, but this lady goes to bed at 8 p.m. like clockwork. So now I'm definitely curious as to what made her miss bedtime. The following conversation ensued. Me: "So why didn't you go to bed at 8 p.m. like always?" Grandma: "I told Alexa I would go to bed and wished her a good night." Odd, but explaining to her that the little box is not an actual person would take better half of an hour. I decided not to, and to be honest, it's quite endearing. Me: "So what made you miss bedtime?" Grandma: "She asked me if she could tell me a bedtime story." Me: "And you said yes?" Grandma: "Of course. So I sat there for about an hour and listened to her." Me: "You know you can tell her to stop and just go to bed, right?" Grandma: "No, I wouldn't want to make her sad." I love my grandma. Edit: "Thanks for the platinum. I'll make sure to give my grandma a call later and tell her that she brightened someone's day with her appreciation of a piece of software." I know for a lot of older generations, my parents were born in the 40s, and so they get it. But I think anybody older than them tends to have a hard time getting their head around the fact that, this abstract thing of artificial intelligence, it seems all too real to them, especially if they live by themselves and are old, maybe a little lonely. I could see where they could add a little personification to an object like that. You can say, especially when Alexa starts answering back, things that the right answers. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments. All the servers are down after hours call. So we have a client who runs several hospitality businesses, restaurants and hotels, that sort of thing. I've worked with the point of contact there once previously. She's a handful. Anyways, I'm on call this weekend and I get an after hours call with a report that everything is down. Servers, computers, everything. I call up the contact. She explains that, no, the network isn't down, but one of the phones is down. Can I call the contractor who installed the phones on a Saturday to get immediate help? I ask her if I can talk to the person having the issue, and she provides the phone number. I call the person and she says she's getting this weird error on her wireless phone. It says, low battery. We're charging a couple $100 an hour for an after hours call because her phone battery was low? People are morons. Yeah, I know there's some simple technical stuff that could go wrong where people are, questioning it and not sure if they should call tech support or not, but yeah, low battery doesn't seem to be one of those issues that they should be calling about. True story, unfortunately. Quite some years ago, when I was green in the video surveillance industry, the era of VCRs, I was working on the tech support for a wholesaler of video surveillance equipment. One day I got a notorious, furious nutcase shouting through the phone that our equipment sucks and always breaks, and now he has another broken device straight out of the box, and I have to come over and resolve it, and he's going to charge us for all the lost hours he spent on our crappy equipment. After explaining that we do not have people on the road for on-site support, but that as an exception, I could come over to check what's going on. After discussing this with my spineless manager, who always feels sorry for the guys shouting the loudest. But I also explained to him that if we managed to resolve it with his device, we were going to charge him $100 per hour. Obviously, this made him furious again. He told me he would do the same if we couldn't resolve it with the same device. So after a 1.5 hour drive, I arrived and started my investigation, with a constant whining, swearing, and complaining from the nutcase. And I noticed that the device didn't do anything after pressing any button whatsoever. I checked at the back of the device if the switch was on. Always check the basics. And it was. But by reaching out for this button, I noticed that there was no power cord plugged in. So I asked the nutcase for the box the equipment was delivered in and grabbed the power cord. The nutcase became silent, and I silently unfolded the power cord, plugged it into the power, and fixed the broken device, and told the guy to have a nice day and left. And after a 1.5 hour drive back to the office, I made a $400 invoice with a smile on my face. I'll bet you did. A little bit of malicious compliance mixed in with tech support there. Nothing wrong with that. You guys ever run into a client like that? Somebody that's always nagging and whining and complaining and blaming everything on you instead of something that they either didn't listen to or didn't read or didn't check the whole box? What do you think? Let me know down below. Radio station strikes again. As some of you may know from my last post, I was involved with a radio station in college that was all student run. Years ago, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, decided it would be a good idea to move all the public file information online. The FCC has a bad habit of things such as posting deadlines for filing, but not having their system completely functional for accepting these filings. And because I'm the younger person that recently graduated, I'm assisting the contract engineer that does the filings. There's sometimes issues involved in making him and the other staff understand the process of solving these issues. Now, to understand, the situation that developed is that there are two different types of radio stations in the FM band in the United States. You have non-commercial stations and commercial stations. The station I was working with is a non-commercial station located at a local university. So there's two types of ownership report forms. There is the 323 for commercial stations, and there is the 323E for non-commercial stations. So as I'm filling out the paperwork for ownership report, they're using the non-commercial stations as the guinea pigs for testing their new experimental licensing system. Wonderful, I'm thinking to myself. Along with rolling out the new public inspection filing system for online, how can this go wrong? Well, there's a couple issues that are involved, and some of them are legal requirements issued by the Commission in their regulations. You have deadlines to meet and have them filed by and posted. Well, the system was set up in such a way that you could not manually post the items to the public inspection file system online. They were pulled across automatically from the FCC experimental licensing system into the public file for the facility or station. Shocker, it doesn't work. How is this a problem? Well, there are certain groups of people out there that don't care for certain types of programming on radio stations, and want to have them taken off here and get the license reissued to them so they may broadcast in that spectrum instead with their messages. Some of the tactics these folks have used over the years is filing complaints about missed deadlines, a small technical violation. The next thing I was concerned about is placing the information in the wrong place in the public file, because technically that would be another violation in some respects. I'm getting pressure from the station management to make sure we're 100% compliant. So I'm like, okay, let's call the FCC and ask for guidance. Well, that goes over like, no, don't do that. The reason why is that trying to have contact with the FCC can usually lead to bigger and more fun surprises. I'm like, we don't have an option because we're up against a deadline, and we don't want to have other issues. I finally get the okay from the station management to do so, against the advice of the Broadcast Association and the state. Well, after being on hold and finally getting to talk to an agent from the FCC Technical Support Department, not the Enforcement Division. Key aspect here is getting somebody from the Tech Support Department, not the Enforcement Division, because the last thing you want to do is upset the Enforcement Department, so have them come out and do a station inspection. Those folks can be extremely fun. One time they criticized us for using red pen on our daily log sheets, because they're the only ones that are supposed to use red pen when examining the log sheets. So I explained the problem to the agent, and she was very calm about it, and said that it was a known problem, and not to worry about it and it would be taken care of. I asked for a confirmation number, which I did get from her, and confirmed that we wouldn't be subject to enforcement actions because it's a technical failure on the FCC website and computer system. She confirmed yes. The wonderful thing about these types of calls is that these calls are recorded for quality insurance monitoring purposes. I was thinking to myself, well, that can be good for legal purposes if something goes wrong. I was rather proud that we did have an instance where the FCC decided to show up instead. About a week later, the problem was fixed, and the FCC called us back on the station's main line and left a voicemail saying they had fixed the issue and everything was compliant. I was like, yes! Then I was able to get back to the station management, say, see, it wasn't that big a problem. I said the best thing to do is be forthright with the FCC on their computer tech issues, so this way you don't become the problem, and you place the burden back on the FCC. I can only imagine going forward with the next couple months with this pandemic issue how the FCC's system is going to fare with them pushing back all the deadlines for filing when everybody goes to file on their system, overloads from the system being taxed all at once with new filings that have been backed up for at least half a year now. I can't imagine dealing with any entity like the FCC's a fun thing to do. It's like any other bureaucracy, they set goals, rules, deadlines, and everything for you, but then they create roadblocks, whether it's, inadvertently or neglect or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's your fault and you get the penalties because they screwed up the system that they're forcing you to use. You guys ever run into that? Let me know in the comments. Hey, if you've made it this far, you are awesome. You might as well go ahead and click subscribe and like, right? And hey, check out one of these videos up here. I think you'll enjoy it.